What's the most embarrassing date you've been on?
So this is embarrassing in retrospect. Back in my second year of college, I was pulling an all-nighter at the same time as this very cute girl who I was friends with. We weren't in the same place, but we kept messaging over Facebook or Hangouts or what have you the entire night. It was really nice just talking with her. I had been single for about 2 months, and was just getting over the breakup. When dawn hit and our papers were finally done, she asked me out for celebratory breakfast. I went looking kinda gross. I absolutely looked like I had just finished an all-nighter. She looked radiant and had clearly put more work into this meeting than I did. As our breakfast went on, we're talking, laughing, and the caffeine is mixing with the satisfaction of completing my work for the semester, and I just feel like I'm in a really good place, and I tell her as much. The sun is starting to fill the windows of the restaurant we're in, and there's this warm light everywhere. She smiles, looks coy, and asks me if I'm over my ex. I smile back, say that I am, and tell her that I'm already thinking of the person who I'd like to ask out next. She smiles even broader and asks me if she knows who it is, while touching me on the hand. Still smiling, I say, I don't think so. Her name is Rebecca and she was in one of my history classes. Distinctly, this was not the girl I was out to breakfast with. The girl I was with looked absolutely devastated. And I had no idea why. I think I said something like, I'm sad the semester's ending soon, but I'll see you in the spring. And thus ended what I would later learn was the first date with the woman who would later become my wife. Had a date with a girl who asked me out. This had never happened before. I was pretty excited. We went and got dinner and followed up at a bar for a couple of drinks. We went back to my house and she politely informed me that we could chill at my house, but that she doesn't sleep with people on the first date. No worries, I told her, and we hung out with my roommates and listened to some music. After a couple of hours she told me she had a great time but that she was going to head home. Since my roommates were home, she asked if I would walk her to her car. Once we got out there she leaned in and kissed me. I kissed back and a light makeout session occurred for about half a minute. We embraced in a hug and she must have felt my boner trying to escape my jeans because she looked down. I also looked down, and what do I see? My fucking boner head sticking visibly out of the top my waistline. She fucking lost it. Like it was the goddamn funniest thing she'd ever seen. I stammered out an apology. She kept laughing and got in her car and said, I'll text you, as she was still heaving with laughter. I walked back inside, after an adjustment, and told my roommates what had happened and we got drunk and laughed about it. I dated that girl for another couple of months. She ended up dumping me on my birthday. Was at a house party, the girl whose house it was pulled me into her parents' bedroom. We were kissing and fumbling around like teens do on her parents' bed. Took her pants off and for some reason said something like, do you think your dad does this to your mom here? The mood died pretty quick after that. Still cringe when I think about it. If you're reading this, I'm sorry Catherine. It was and still is the most embarrassing moment of my life. This was embarrassing in the moment, but it worked out. It was a second date, but it was also Valentine's Day, so I decided to get her flowers, a card that plays music, and some chocolates. It was freezing cold, but I didn't have anywhere to keep them besides my car. I took the chance the flowers might die. We had a nice date, and when we get back to my car I got them out. Oh, those flowers were dead. Ah well. She opened the card, and the sound chip just went BBs. I sighed and said, well, I hope the chocolates are okay. She started laughing and gave me our first kiss. First date with my now husband. We are both very anxious people who had little experience with dating and we were both so nervous. I threw up right before the date. He came to pick me up and we drove to the library where we were planning to use their Wi-Fi to watch Netflix in the back of the car. Despite being almost 20 years old, my mom would not let us hang out in my bedroom at home. As soon as we got to the library he got out of the car and threw up in the parking lot. I then admitted to him that I had also thrown up right before the date. He tried to play it off as us having the flu or food poisoning, but we both knew it was really just the nerves. I went with a girl to see a really late night theater show. It ended at like 2 a.m., well past when public transit stopped running. We didn't have a car or money for a taxi, so we walked back to her family's house since I lived much further away. We collapsed fully clothed on her bed and instantly fell asleep. 3 hours later her dad shook me awake and demanded to know who I was. Then when he found out I was studying chemistry in college, he started questioning me about thermodynamics, which was, really not my strongest subject. It was one of those setups where my mom and his mom were friends and they were like, our two nerdy, intensely introverted loner kids should date. Unfortunately, that was the literal entirety of what we had in common, so. Bonus detail. We went to a theater that was showing The Big Sleep. He fell asleep. This one is a roller coaster of embarrassment then sadness. So I took a girl out to Nando's once on a date. She was really nice and we talked quite a lot, so I decided to treat her. On the drive there, the conversation was really awkward, but it was our first time speaking, so that was understandable. We ordered like normal, and I ate mine, but noticed she wasn't eating at all, and I asked why she wasn't eating anything, and she was like, I don't feel like it, and proceeded to pour her entire meal into her handbag. I was a bit annoyed, but most of all felt massive secondhand embarrassment from her part. It was so weird. We then drove home in silence and all I could smell was the food that she had left in her handbag. Not even wrapped up. This is the sad part. She messages me 2 days later saying she was really sorry she was acting weird. Only 3 or 4 nights prior to the date was the Manchester Arena bombings, and she went. I had not even realized she had gone, so she was traumatized as fuck. Then I felt really bad for not asking about it, but TBF, I had no clue. We never spoke again after that, poor girl. Dude spent most of the night talking about his buddy Pedro and how he couldn't wait to introduce us. Turns out Pedro was his dick and they were both pretty pissed that I wouldn't even shake hands with Pedro. Never mind, kiss him BC, you hurt his feelings by refusing to shake hands. I met up with someone I met on Plenty of Fish. We met up at one of the nicer restaurants in town. She was 30 minutes late and came in like a bull through a china shop. Her lipstick was smeared all over her teeth. She threw herself into the chair, and without even saying hello, loudly started telling me about how she had been stretching a few nights before and has somehow ripped her vagina while doing it. Had to go to the ER. By this point literally everyone in the restaurant was quiet and staring at us. I was trying to talk really low, hoping she would unconsciously mimic me, but no go. She just kept talking about really personal stuff at max volume. She then mocked me when I said I was looking for a partner to be in a serious relationship with me. I took that as a pretty obvious sign we weren't looking for the same thing. So by the end of lunch when she asked to meet up again, I said that it would be okay as friends, but I didn't think we'd work out for dating. She then started crying and stormed out. It was both the most baffling and embarrassing date I've ever been on. Girl and I made plans to meet at an outdoor mall and see a movie. This was back in middle school, so my mom had to drive me in about an hour's worth of traffic, and she cancels 15 minutes out. I felt so bad for my mom driving me all the way there already, so I simply pretended like she hadn't canceled. My mom dropped me off, and I watched a movie by myself. Almost cried, but I kept it together. But I mean, the movie was good at least. There was a girl that I had met through mutual friends, and we drifted in and out of each other's lives for a few years. I finally asked her out, and after a few dates, we had a lovely one at an outdoor cafe on a beautiful late summer evening. We went back to my place for the first time, and started kissing on my bed, which is when I felt something warm start to drip from my nose. It started bleeding and was dripping on her upper lip before I could catch it. I was horrified, and tried to wipe it off, which just smeared it, then ran to the bathroom to stuff a tissue in my nostril and get her a washcloth. She was as polite as she could be, but promptly informed me that she was leaving and wouldn't let me walk her to her car. As she walked out the front door, she turned and told me, "It's really too bad, because I was in a really good mood tonight." She was gone, and I headed to the bar to drown my sorrows. Somehow we've been together almost 10 years and married for 6. Love you, sweetheart. I was 13 and it was my first date. She wanted to meet at some place and then go somewhere else, but I was pretty bad at knowing places, so I had to ask my mom where it was. She gave me a lift and I thought she'd go away, but she apparently went out to see what's happening. Not knowing I was being watched, I met her and we started walking when suddenly my mom yelled out from behind us that we were going in the wrong direction. I was so embarrassed I wasn't able to talk to the girl normally after and just went home very quickly because I thought the whole thing was already fucked. So this is embarrassing in retrospect. Back in my second year of college, I was pulling an all-nighter at the same time as this very cute girl who I was friends with. We weren't in the same place, but we kept messaging over Facebook or Hangouts or what have you the entire night. It was really nice just talking with her. I had been single for about 2 months, and was just getting over the breakup. When dawn hit and our papers were finally done, she asked me out for celebratory breakfast. I went looking kinda gross. I absolutely looked like I had just finished an all-nighter. She looked radiant and had clearly put more work into this meeting than I did. As our breakfast went on, we're talking, laughing, and the caffeine is mixing with the satisfaction of completing my work for the semester, and I just feel like I'm in a really good place, and I tell her as much. The sun is starting to fill the windows of the restaurant we're in, and there's this warm light everywhere. She smiles, looks coy, and asks me if I'm over my ex. I smile back, say that I am, and tell her that I'm already thinking of the person who I'd like to ask out next. She smiles even broader and asks me if she knows who it is, while touching me on the hand. Still smiling I say, I don't think so, her name is Rebecca and she was in one of my history classes. Distinctly, this was not the girl I was out to breakfast with. The girl I was with looked absolutely devastated. And I had no idea why. I think I said something like, I'm sad the semester's ending soon, but I'll see you in the spring. And thus ended what I would later learn was the first date with the woman who would later become my wife.